appearing on the notice paper in her name.
The member for Lalor.
I move the motion relating to the Regional Development Australia Fund in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. Deputy Speaker, last week on the 11th of March, my office was contacted by several Tarneit residents concerned after reading the local paper. They were ringing to convey their dismay that the planned library would not receive the $1.05 million promised by the federal government. I was surprised to learn in the same article that the responsible minister had confirmed to a local journalist that the funds would not be delivered as budgeted. On the same day, my office received a letter addressed to me from the Minister for Infrastructure, the member for Wide Bay. It was in response to a letter I had written requesting confirmation of federal government funding for the new Tarneit Library. It was dated the 28th of February, but it seems it took a full 9 days for the post to get to Werribee from Canberra. The letter was in response to a letter I had sent to both the member for Wide Bay and the member for Mayo on the 31st of October last year. I, like the residents of Tarneit, learned of the decision in the local paper because the member for Wide Bay, Deputy Prime Minister, Leader of the Federal National Party, took a full 4 months to respond to my letter. 4 months. In those 4 months, Deputy Speaker, another 500 houses have been built in the growth suburb of Tarneit. In those 4 months, the population of Tarneit grew by another 790 people. In those 4 months, a school year has gone and a new one begun, with more and more students needing access to books. The local school students at Tarneit College are doubly disadvantaged, Deputy Speaker, because their school has no library either. The need for the Abbott government to honour the commitment to fund Tarneit Library becomes more urgent every day. The minister, however, has decided to cut government funding for the Tarneit Library. He explained the funding cuts in these terms, and I quote, "The government has announced that it does not propose to fund projects announced by the former government. These projects were election promises and naturally do not bind the incoming government." This is simply not true. The funding was approved and budgeted for before the election campaign had begun. I note the minister recommends another 2 funds the government has set up and suggests that they may be a source of future funding for the Tarneit Library project. In short, he's suggesting that the City of Wyndham reapply for the same money for the same project. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Speaker, but is this not coming from the same government proudly asserting that they were here to cut red tape? How is reapplying for the same grant a second time cutting red tape? Tarneit is one of the fastest growing communities in Melbourne. A suburb of Wyndham, the 3rd fastest growing local government area in the country. In Tarneit, there are more than 9,990 households, 5,700 residents from a non-English speaking background, 7,500 people currently attending an educational institution. Tarneit's population grew between 2007 and 2012 by 15,000 people. This is a staggering 295% increase. Tarneit needs vital services and infrastructure yesterday. All the research, Deputy Speaker, says that kids who are read to have better literacy outcomes. This is incontestable and the reason why libraries are so important in a growing community. Last week I spoke to a council officer who told me that the neighbouring Point Cook Library, they run a 0 to 2 book session for 17 babies, and that just last week 50 children presented with their parents for a session. Just one clear example of the demand and oversubscription in Lalor. As you can see, this library has already had huge support from the community, and in turn, the library supports the community. The City of Wyndham has done its part. It is time the federal government honoured its part of this bargain. Providing services such as public library is precisely what government is for. It couldn't be more clear. This community desperately needs this library. A community member told me only last Friday, "We need this library, Joanne. My children are spending 45 minutes on a bus just to get to the closest library and then 45 minutes home again. If you are serious about cutting red tape, don't make the City of Wyndham reapply for funding that has already been granted and budgeted for. Don't make them write yet another submission. Don't make them collate yet more data. The growth pattern in Lalor is clear. The Tarneit Library is clearly a priority for local council. The need is incontestable. The positive outcomes all but guaranteed. I would strongly urge the federal government to support this Library to fund it to the $1.05 million as promised before the election.